Hello, my name is Russ Timpson. I'm the founder of the Tall Building Fire Safety Network. What you're about to see is a video from our 2025 Tall Building Fire Safety Conference. You can find more other great videos on tall building fire safety on our YouTube channel, and there are many more presentations on our website, www.tallbuildingfiresafety. If you find our videos and presentations useful, please like and subscribe us on our YouTube channel. Halfway through the video, you're going to see details of our 2026 conference, which will take place in May in London. We have a fantastic program, and we also have a separate high-rise firefighting masterclass with Brent Brooks and special guests from around the world. There are also details of our 5-day intensive tall building fire safety management course, which will be running in London throughout 2026, but also in the Mediterranean, in Cyprus and in Malta. This is an ideal course for anybody who's dealing with fire safety matters in tall and complex buildings. So I hope you find these videos useful. And as we say in the Tall Building Fire Safety Network, go high and go well. Thanks.
I'm following those two very digital presentations. This is very analog.
Well, I mean, you've mentioned the golden thread, but I think just probably.
So, BS 991 2024 is a code of good practice. That's all it is. Okay, it can and does go above the minimum requirements of the national building regulations. It was developed by a panel of individual experts and regulators. That includes National Fire Chiefs Council, Health and Safety Executive, the individuals behind Approved Document B, local building control, as well as individuals, practitioners, individuals working on the coalface. The technical content, once it was developed, was then reviewed and endorsed by a full-time technical committee. So it wasn't that we just published it, it then got another level of review. And the reason why it took so long is because of the sheer number of comments we received back in 2021. So that's what 991 is. What is it not? It's not mandatory. There is no legal obligation for you to use it. We would like you to, because we think it's a great document. But if you buy it, open it and go, no, then that's okay. No one should tell you otherwise. Additionally, you are not obligated to use it the moment it comes out. So if you have designed a building to use in the previous edition, now, first of all, there has to be an acknowledgement that the 2024 edition took into account all of the legislative changes, but provided you have met your legal obligations, you can still use the previous version. All right? It is also not a textbook. It is designed and written to be used by people who have the relevant expertise and competence. It is not going to fill any holes in your knowledge. Now, I doubt that applies to anybody here, but as I'll go on to in a moment, the groups of people that would previously maybe ignore 991 is no longer the case. We also received post-publication a lot of comments about, well, why does it not match ADB? Well, because British standards are for the entire country, and while we are a single country, we have multiple different sets of legislation and regulation we have to account for, and all of those have to be factored in. The purpose of 991 is to go beyond the minimum. So if you want to use ADB, which again is only statutory guidance, that is your choice in England and Wales. If you want to go a bit further, you've got 991. And if you want a fully fire engineered solution, you have BS 7974 and the PD documents, Fire Safety Engineering. Most importantly, standards aren't published over a transitionary period. Okay, so unlike ADB, which is published, and there's usually a period of time for you to read it and digest it, 991 wasn't. Now, we did consider that within the panel, There was concerns that it would be confusing because it was a break in tradition. We did try to provide some pre-awareness of the changes that were coming. In hindsight, perhaps we weren't as forthright and blunt about the changes as we could have been. It did take some people by surprise. So they are elements that we're taking into consideration for our future standards. But in general, once the standard comes out, it comes into effect at the end of the calendar month which it is published. But again, there's no obligation on you to use it, so you can take some time to read it. So why did we bother to revise 9991? Well, because fire safety in the UK is no longer the same and will never be again. There was an event in 2017, we all know what it was, sadly, that changed fire safety for good, and the impact will continue to be felt for perhaps generations to come. The Grenfell Tower Inquiry Report, which was published before the 9991 was issued, raised some questions and technical points that BS 9991 felt it could address. Now, we didn't write the standards with any inside knowledge as to what the inquiry's recommendations were going to be, but we tried to dovetail as best we could. There's been a lot of changes, as I said, to legislation and the improved documents, and there is now an increased interest by wider society in fire safety. And that increased interest brings much greater demands. And competency is now key to fire safety, not just the competency standards, but the way the industry is speaking about its experts and the expectations placed upon them. So, as I said, 9991, well, one of our most widely read standards, was written in 2015 for a particular audience. That audience has expanded. We divided users into 4 key groups, some of which will be obvious. So we have your designers and your specifiers, your architects, your engineers, your contractors, subcontractors, and consultants on construction services whose activities touch on design. It's quite a broad group. Then you have your authorities, your building control bodies, your fire and rescue services, and regulators. That is not an insult to regulators in quotation marks. It's quite a broad term. It doesn't necessarily mean government. It means anyone who has a degree of control for the industry. Then you have your managers and the owners, the people who have a legal responsibility to actually ensure fire safety in the buildings. This is not just owners or leaseholders, but duty holders and asset managers, and their competent person. And finally, residents. I'm a resident. I am a resident in a building who had the joy of having remedial fire safety work in the aftermath of Grenfell. And I'm very interested in making sure that the people working on my building have an idea of what they're doing. I'm not convinced all the time they do, but I'm interested and my neighbours are interested. And the days that people would just take it for granted are gone. All right. So now we get on to the changes to the standard. Now when we talk about change standards, new versions coming out, people tend to think, well, a new standard is a new standard, right? You just updated it. And actually we use the terms in very particular ways for very particular reasons. There are 2 of the big ones outside of a full revision. There's a core agenda and an amendment. Now, an amendment is when we have small-scale changes to specific aspects of the text. So you might find a couple of clauses or a particular section has been rewritten, but the rest of the standard remains as it was. Usually, these are technical changes. They can also be editorial. In essence, if the intention behind the words has changed, it's an amendment. It's a technical change. Core agendas, however, are not just us fixing the mistakes and the boo-boos. Sometimes, as we actually had after the publication of 9991, the comments we get through show us that, well, the text was right. Maybe the explanation didn't quite hit how we wanted it to. We forget sometimes in panels that the decisions about the text are taken after an extensive, long, multi-hour debate, which the reader of the standard will not be privy to. So sometimes human being nature being what it is, it will be written, and we look at it afterwards and go, "Ooh, yeah, no, we get the confusion." So this is a core addendum are changes where the wording may be slightly different, but the intention is the same. And that could also include fixing of typos, which I'm sorry to say is just a fact of life. So an amendment, going back to it, updates are needed only affect part of the standards. More likely to happen before the big revisions that come out, and they're usually in response to a particular event, changes in legislation, perhaps a tragedy where there was an awareness in the aftermath of the investigation that something needs to be different, or it's been brought to our attention, such as with BS 750. If you've read the Grenfell final report, you will note that they made a recommendation of a change, and we have accepted that, and it will be amended. Core agenda, again, they're critical errors that we have to do now, either to aid the understanding, and with something like 9991, given what it's used for, can't really delay if we can avoid it. We usually undertake it within 6 months of publication. We may be slightly out of it, but it's fine. And most important for a lot of people, core agendas are provided for free. So whereas an amendment is a new version of the previous standard, a core agenda is just an update. And if you're an existing user or purchaser of the standard, you'll be able to download the revised version in pretty much the same way as you did with the current edition. We are expecting it to be published next week, the 23rd, but even though it gets published, we press a button on day one, it usually takes a day or two for the hamster and the wheel to start spinning, so you may not see it until Tuesday or Wednesday. So if it isn't on the 23rd, please don't panic. So what sort of changes are coming? So there are 18, and I tried to find a way of making this as visually stimulating possible, but this is going to be quite dry. Now I'm going to read out the trends that we received in the 125 comments that we got post-publication that will refer to the drafting panel, and I'm going to surmise the panel's response, but not give you the actual changes that are being made, because until it is published, there's always the possibility that it could be changed. It's not going to be changed, not this day, but I'm not going to push my luck. So, stairways and evacuation lifts. We've received a lot of concerns about the necessity of 2 escape stairways and associated evacuation lifts for buildings above certain heights and the design implications of them. Panel noted these, but stated questions regarding the transitional periods from those changes we made would be on the scope of the review. So if any of you have had any complaints about the transitionary period or lack thereof, BSI have noted them, and we will consider them in the future. Sprinkler systems. Clarified that sprinkler coverage within stairways is necessary under the standard unless justified otherwise for fire engineering. Improvements, references to approved document K. We had several comments actually querying the removal of references to ADK, highlighting the significant implications for stair design dimensions. The original intention had been to allow the use of ADK as an alternative approach. However, the way that it was written in the 2015 version wasn't acceptable under the current version of the BSI drafting rules, so that had to be changed. After consideration, the panel have decided to remove the recommendation altogether on the basis that it's recovered by the functional requirements of the building regs. So you should be able to go back to using ADK should you wish. Water mist, this was a big one. Okay, so those of you who have read 9991 will have noticed that only sprinklers are covered by the scope. Water mist and powder-based systems have been removed. We had a lot of comments about that, and we are still having those discussions. We have received additional evidence that the submitter claims refutes the suggestion that sprinklers and water mist are not one and can be used interchangeably. We are looking into that, but at present the change still stands. That does not mean that we are saying you cannot use water mist whatsoever. We are not denegating the application of water mist. It actually does say in 9991 that if you can show conclusively that you have met the recommendations of 9991 by alternative means, you can be deemed to have met the standard. So there is still a route for you to use water mist. It's just that 9991 doesn't cover it in the scope. Evacuation lifts, driver assisted and automatic. Now we had there was a standard coming out, EN 8176, which we were hoping was going to be published by now, or at least by the publication of 9991. We had to lose Annex G of the 2015 version because the topic was being covered by an EN. We have a relationship, because we're a member of SEN, all European standards that are published. If they conflict with a national standard, the national standard has to be removed or amended to allow it. And we had to remove the annex accordingly. 8176 still hasn't been published. We have been told it's imminent within the next couple of months. We are hoping that when that is published, that will address the concerns that we've received about driver-assisted evacuation lifts, potentially disadvantaging disabled occupants. We are aware that the discussion around evacuation lifts is animated and continuing, and we will keep an eye on that, and future editions of the standard may change based on conversation. Hey, inner rooms and access rooms. We've received a number of queries about practical problems of applying inner room rules to large halls or corridors within flats. We noted the complexity, and we've agreed that we will have to consider changes in future amendments. This is because it would have required much greater technical changes than the car agenda would have allowed. It requires far more discussion and thought, and it would have pushed it into an update being in several years. So we hear the comments, we are going to reflect upon them, but we can't commit to anything at this stage. Travel distances and corridor ventilation. We have agreed corrections to clarify some inconsistencies in travel distances, particularly in the figures and diagrams. So we noted there was a couple of problems there, and we'll fix it again. The changes are there to provide additional clarity. They do not change what the recommendation always was. So if you have a look at the new version of 9991 when it comes out in a couple of weeks and you go, yeah, I already knew that, that's fine. Smoke ventilation and smoke control. Again, there was agreements to provide clarifications because of confusion in diagrams and text regarding smoke ventilation strategies in corridor and evacuation lifts. And again, for power supplies to evacuation lifts, we noticed there were some concerns about references to EN 8176 because we were hoping it would be published. We will be removing those references, and I will have to look to reinsert them when the standard comes out. There's more. Charging and storage of electric wheelchairs and mobility scooters. This is obviously something, as we have an ageing population, is going to become increasingly relevant as the years go by. We will clarify that recommendations are intended specifically for common areas, not private dwellings. Open plan flats and evacuation. We received a number about layouts and occupants needing assistance. Again, we've clarified the intention through a note rather than prescriptive requirements. We had a number of questions around the emergency lighting standards and requests for clarifications on low-mounted way guidance. We provide those clarifications, emphasising the non-electrical options and what we thought was misinterpretation of what the standard meant. Interconnected lobbies and stairs. Again, we've agreed clarifications upon for passages and lobbies connecting different staircase or lifts, recognising that the original text was perhaps a little overly restrictive, and we're going to just try and loosen that up a little bit. Mechanical smoke ventilation in basements and car parks. We've agreed a clarification to separate car park ventilation requirements from basement ventilation. Fire resistance and balconies. We agreed to clarify the fire resistance requirements between enclosed balconies. There was an error automatic testing of emergency lighting. The standard reference should have been BSEN 62034. So we're going to be changing that one. My bad. External firefighting access and routes. We agree to clarify recommendations regarding external appliance access by deleting a figure and modifying the text. And finally, as you'll be pleased to hear, automatic fire release door testing. There is a discrepancy between BS 7273 Part 4. So it's documents that when the fire alarm goes off, doors automatically close. We made a few inconsistencies, and that's going to be corrected. Should point out that BS 7273 Part 4 is also due for a minor amendment in the coming months. So, that was riveting. So what's the future? You'll notice the sections all underlined are lovely and vague. It's because I can't predict the future, and I'm not going to tempt fate. So the core agenda is due out at the end of June. It's going to be the 23rd. We were lucky, we were able to get it done a bit quicker. Then 2026 to 2027, we will consider an amendment to the standard. We are waiting additional feedback. We want to see how things land. There are other standards coming through the pipeline, and we need to see how that all fits up first. So there were quite a few points raised during the post-publication. The panel went, yeah, actually, got a fair point there. We need to talk about it, but we're going to leave it for a little while and then do it. And that means that the next full revision won't be expected until 2027 at the earliest. Normally, we space out revisions as and when required. The average period is about 5 to 7 years. Because of the importance of this standard, the drafting panel and FSH14 are committed to doing an earlier review, which they may then lead to a next full revision before 2030. So what's happening in other standards? So we have BS 9994, Fire Strategies in Buildings. Now that doesn't include AI yet, but it might feed into some of the questions that AI may then take into consideration. 9996 is another new standard. That is commissioning and maintenance of integrated fire safety systems. Again, so you've got a sprinkler system, that works great. You've got a fire alarm system, that works great. You haven't used the relevant part 7974, or maybe you've got smoke control, but how do you ensure that any changes you make to one don't impact another? This will be a code of practice to guide changes that you may want to make sure nothing is inadvertently disrupted. BS 9792, Fire Risk Assessment Housing Codes of Practice, the successor to PAS 79.2, is going to be published in August. We are anticipating it will be the 1st of August. May shift a little as we get closer towards the end, but the text is written and it is coming out. And then obviously the competency standard will follow a little bit after. PAS 9980, which is the fire risk assessment for external wall systems, that has just finished the public consultation period. That ended with just over 500 comments. That is intended to come out late this year, very early next year. And the three obviously are interlinked. So the competency standard tells you the competency the fire risk assessor needs to have to be able to undertake the fire risk assessments. The BS 9792 gives you the process to undertake a fire risk assessment within blocks of housing. And 9980 tells you the process needed to undertake fire risk assessments for external wall systems. There is PAS 791, which is for non-domestic premises. That will almost certainly be turned into a BS at some point in the near future. The history behind PAS 79.2, it was a little unpleasant post-publication, and that's the reason why 7972 jumped queue, as it were. Now we've done 9991, the hope is that we will be looking at revising 9999, which is the non-domestic counterpart for 9991. That hopefully won't take as long, but work hasn't officially started, so you won't be seeing that. Probably a public consultation 2027, maybe 2028, with publication hopefully a little bit afterwards. It is not it will be intended to be revised so it matches 991 where relevant, but it isn't going to be a simple cut and paste job. I can imagine some of the conversations we had in 991 will reappear in 9999 and probably take just as long to resolve. And finally, BSI has responded to the recent MHCLG green paper on construction products because we were mentioned quite a few times directly. We have agreed to allow our responses to be made public. So I imagine when MHCLG does so, you can read what the National Standards Body for the UK had to say.